So as Savannah's kindly introduced me, I'm one of the academic team managers over in Library and Student Services, as we now are, at Montfort University. I'm also the Fair Outcomes Champion for Library Services and part of the Decolonising DMU project team and have worked with them right from the get-go. So what I want to talk about today really is looking at particularly at the kind of staffing profile behind the library doors, as it were, as we open up the doors, and to talk a bit about the kind of work that we've done here at Montfort University to try and address that. It is very incremental work, it's not an overnight fix, but to see what we can do to address that. So just to give you a bit of a sense of the session, I'll give you a bit of context, I'll talk a bit about what we've actually done, how we've done it, talk a bit about that impact and development, and just say a few words about the future. I think we're quite safe to say that unfortunately, as a profession, library and information workers are predominantly white, okay? We serve a very diverse populace, so there is a very strong argument that we shouldn't be predominantly white, okay? And just to give a bit of evidence to underpin that, our professional body, CILIP, this year did one of their workforce mapping exercises, and less than 5% of a survey of just over 4,000 professional library and information workers identified with what CILIP termed as a non-white ethnicity. In 2019, the Standing Conference of National and University Libraries commissioned Ishak and Hussein to do some research into the experiences of ethnically minoritised staff in academic and research libraries. This, amongst other things, this piece of work again confirmed the lack of ethnic diversity within that particular sector. Here at Montfort University, as I say, Library and Learning Services has been very much engaged within the work of Decolonising DMU. We've worked in various areas to try and make a more diverse and culturally aware space. We've still got a lot of work to do. We've not solved that, but we have developed a lot of things a lot further forward. We've worked through 4 streams in total, so as you would expect as a library, we've done work around the collection, are still doing work around our collection. We've done work and research around our spaces and the use of those spaces and the engagement and any barriers, particularly either perceived or experienced by our students of colour. And we've done work around our staffing, more of that, that's really the focus of this talk. And we've done a lot around raising awareness and offering safe spaces for discussion around anti-racism, around decolonising, and the impact of that, and thinking about actions that we can take to ameliorate that within the university and whatever area of the university people attending those sessions were working. So a very cornerstone of the work with the staff that has been done has been revolved around offering opportunities for library experience to our students and to kind of the broader world, if you like, but the broader world comes in as an employee. Having said that, it's important to note that any of the work that our students have undertaken, again, has been paid work, okay? We've been very strong on that. We have not taken on board volunteers. It has had its payment due. Okay. So we've worked through existing internships that the university has systems in place for, and we created a library trainee role. The experience of this has been very positive, not only for the post-incumbents, but also for the library staff as well. It's been a real enrichment experience, and we've learnt a lot forward. So, as I said earlier, I'm kind of positing this as a positive, although very incremental way forward to making the academic library workforce, can't say it, more diverse. Okay. As was pointed out this morning, I think by the VC, in stark contrast to our library staff profile, our cohort of students and indeed the demographics of our local area, we're talking, well, within our cohort, we're talking sort of 50-50 students of colour to white students ratio. The local demographic will be, a higher proportion of the global majority compared with white people. So there is also a whole stream within the literature and the research, and again, I think this has been alluded to this morning, around the need for students who are learning to be able to see themselves reflected in that institution, to see themselves reflected in the curriculum, to feel a connection and a sense of belonging, and this aids learning, it aids successful learning, it aids retention, and that overall student experience. So it's really important. And I've just pulled out a few things from the literature. So, for example, Coleman, 2015, was still talking about the racialised gap in belonging within his work. Okay, and there's various other pieces of research that I have alluded to there as well, which again highlight that the persistence of that racialised gap in experience. Ishak and Hussein, I'm not going to labour this slide. We've already said, yes, they confirm that lack of ethnic diversity in the academic and research library workforce, acknowledge that the need for greater ethnic diversity within that workforce. Interestingly, they also asked people around their experience within the workplace, and it very much acknowledges some challenges for staff of colour. But again, interestingly and very positively, despite these workplace challenges, staff of colour would still recommend the library profession to anyone from a minoritised ethnic community considering a career in this sector, and I think that really is key. So, bearing all of that in mind, and thinking what can we do within the library, we talked about offering a graduate library traineeship. And the idea was that it would offer a pre-qualification experience for someone wanting to move forward within that particular profession. We put a bid in through Decolonising DMU, we got the funding, we'd got a draft workforce diversity plan at that time within library and learning services. So again, that was a bit of a leverage. We could say this very much aligns with that plan. And as I say, we offered it as a kind of slow burn mechanism. We secured the funding, and then we had to go to staff recruitment group, which is a university body that has to approve everything. So I'm going to kind of take you through that journey a little bit, because I kind of think it matters, because, you know, it's a journey to go on and there are barriers, etc. So to anyone in the room that's considering offering such a thing, yes, please do. But, you know, as all these things, it takes time and it takes work. The rationale that I put forward for having a library trainee, as you would expect, fits in with the diversity plan, chimes with the ethos and objectives of the Decolonising DMU project, and we're a corporate strategic project. We've got the employment money, the costs covered, so that's always important. We specified what we wanted. It was a fixed term role, but also crucially, we were saying it's a role that will enable someone to progress. So although it was fixed term, the idea was that person would gain a lot of experience. They would either move forward either by gaining a qualification, continuing working in that area, or even, as we said, they're going to acquire a whole host of skills. So if they decide libraries aren't for them, or they think, oh, well, I'm interested in more the kind of academic tutoring side of libraries or the technology side of libraries, they've got some skills in their bag to enable them to move forward. And also, we argued, again, they will have some impact on the student experience because, you know, it's that change in profile, no matter how sort of incremental. Seeing yourself reflected in a profession, you know you've got a place and you know that you can aspire to those roles. So that was kind of the underpinning ideas. Just a bit more around that kind of prep work, if you like. So we'd initially said that we said we want to employ a graduate of colour to come and be our library trainee. We were told by the university we couldn't do that. It was an equal opportunities field, and that's fair enough, and that was what we did. We very much approached that. Our library trainees very much won their place, very fair and square. We offered, as I've put there, we made sure it was very fair, equitable, transparent recruitment. We had a representative panel, so in terms of gender and ethnicity, that was balanced. But we didn't only subject our poor potential library trainees to an interview scenario. We also engaged them with various other tasks, so there was an observed group discussion, and that was observed by other members of library staff, so there was sort of buy-in there. They had to do prioritisation tests and problem-solving tests, so it was a very rigorous recruitment process. We were very highly delighted by the response that we got, so it was also quite a competitive field. It was a very competitive field. The first time we offered the role, it was for a 12-month contract. We had 48 applicants, very diverse in demographics and education and experience. The second time it was only an 8-month contract, but we still had 33 applicants. So highly competitive, really tough for people to get through. But consequently, that was great for us because we were able to recruit very excellent library trainees. The other side to it as well, that yes, we had to have all this approval, but we also had to plan very much for what that programme would look like. And I had to get approval from the library management group, and I had to get buy-in from all the different departments that the library trainees would work within. Because not only, that was the whole idea, they would get a rounded experience, but it wasn't, well, I'm the one that's kind of line managing it, so I have to write the programme. The departments, yes, our trainees would work with those processes that they engaged with, but they were also able to engage with specific projects and also in some areas offer their own projects as well. So that was another highly developmental area. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea of the different areas that they work with. So anything from learning services with the librarians, the subject librarians, academic tutors. Front of house, they work front of house all the way through the year, so they always had 2 days. And the reason behind that was so that they had a kind of sense of community and they had a place, because one of the big things with it is that they were forever changing. I'm looking at Hafsa, sorry. She's our last brilliant library trainee, and that was it. You're forever like you're in one department, you get to know the ropes, you get to know everybody, then you move on. So, but that's the breadth of the experience. Just going to give you a flavour of those projects. So, we had anything from an ebook project about promoting those ebooks, down to our first trainee. She did a whole programme around putting quotes from ebooks out in the library with a QR code next to it so that they could then just sort of go through and look at those QR codes. She provided, I won't go into what the digitised journey is at the moment because we haven't got time, but she provided an infographic or created an infographic around that journey as a way of explaining that and as a tool and guide for others to use. We've done a lot of work around displays and more of that in a moment. And we also have we engaged with the pedagogic feedback project. And we've done a lot of work around decolonising the reading list and sort of auditing that representation within reading lists in order to try and generate some kind of evidence trail for discussion, particularly with awarding gap programmes was the plan. And also very small kind of dip sampling of the collection, again looking at how we can, another mechanism for implementing a bit more representation within our collection. So displays. We have a perennial display of material that is by authors, researchers, artists of colour, and they have different themes. So both of the library trainees during their time did actually provide and curate one of those particular displays. We also made our library trainees share their journey and share their experience. So we have a series of tea and talk presentations within the library where people come and talk about whatever. So we invited the library trainees to come and tell us about their journey and what their experience was. And that was a way of making sure that our library staff were aware of this and what was happening. And that worked really well. We offer a staff development week, and both of our trainees actually input into that. They delivered a particular session of their choice into that particular development week, and also wrote articles for the Bulletin, which is the library newsletter, basically. Again, different reflections. Now, our second library trainee benefited from some funding for making visits. The first one, we were just out of lockdown, so I haven't actually put in the request. And particularly because there was an interest in archives, we were able to organise visits to the Black Cultural Archives down in London, to the Stuart Hall Library at Neva in London, and also to the London Metropolitan Archive where they have the Huntley Archives. And I think one of the crucial things with that wasn't just about visiting collections. It was something about having access to staff and professionals working there and being able to discover their sort of career trajectory and gain a bit of inspiration and aspiration from there. Just thought I would quickly share with you, that's going to go off in a minute, I would quickly share with you some quotes from those presentations. So this idea of why our library trainees apply. Deolonising talked very much about, libraries are notoriously hard to break into, the demographic that she represented, and that is that of most students in Leicester, and it would kind of set her apart for the future. Hafsa, in a way, has expressed similarly, and she has, and indeed is working as an archivist, so that is sort of great news. But as I say, I just thought I'd share those to show you the kind of approach that our trainees took. I'm sure there were more challenges than these, but what I did want to note, which I already have, is that kind of almost peripatetic nature of the traineeship, because you've got to get yourself established in one area and then suddenly you've got to go. So neither of them were frightened of that. They both seemed to thrive on it, so that was excellent. And I said at the beginning, I think everybody got an awful lot out of it, and kind of heartwarmingly, I'm now still being asked, where's the library trainee, what's happening with the library trainee. It very much became a part of the library and a programme of the library. So it was very successful. Both of our trainees have been very successful since then, which is good news. And I just wanted to very swiftly, because I'm aware of time, allude to the other areas. I did mention that we'd used various internships. So we have something called frontrunners here at Montfort University, whereby our current students are able to apply for roles. They work for up to 10 hours a week in a particular department. It is a kind of proper job with job description and all that kind of stuff. And they're there for a 6-month period of time. And I have run 2 of those in connection with Decolonising, where they have conducted research into our services and spaces and engagement, etc. We had a student placement for a year, full-time, and she worked partly within the research. Again, she worked front of house, so getting that awareness of libraries and what we were about, and also worked with me around the Decolonising, should say, list audit. And also employed a postdoc researcher who took a different lens on that research that the frontrunners had done, and again was looking at that engagement and who our users are and how they use us. So all about keeping the doors open, widening those doors, and trying to get new people in, which I think we all benefit from. We need that diversity, and also we need that. Make me sound very old. That young blood and youth, which sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? But coming in, it's always great to have new people in. So going forward, the kind of sad note at the end is that it says alternative funding being sought for the library trainee. So I don't have funding for a library trainee this year, which is very, very sad, actually, a big, big shame. But we are seeing whether we can get some elsewhere. But in terms of continuity, we still employ frontrunners. And again, if you bear in mind what I said about De Montfort University's student cohort, obviously, there is there's a diverse field out there. So again, we have a good chance of recruiting people, they are our students, so that our other students can, again, see themselves reflected in the workforce. We have also just developed some apprenticeships within library services, which is kind of our front of house area, if you like, and the whole deal behind that is about broadening our recruitment pool and opening up the doors to encourage people, and both the apprentices would say, I didn't really think I'd end up in a library, and it perhaps wasn't what I was thinking of doing, but it's great and I enjoy it. So that's another mechanism. So I think what I ought to end up with is that the library trainee role was very, very successful, I have to say, but that is also very much due to the excellent post holders that we had. So I believe we're saving questions to the last. And if you see the slides, there is a big librarian, there is a bibliography at the end.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.